Welcome back, everybody. Eric here. So, recently I was asked a question. Someone said, why Glocks, Eric? Why do so many people like Glocks? And why does Glock seem to have this kind of rabid, strange fan base of people that seem to flock to every single thing they do? This is a good question, and I think I have a pretty reasonable answer for you. So we're going to get into this. Before we do, I would like to thank our friends at SDI for supporting today's video. If you're looking for a career in gunsmithing, they're definitely your go-to source. They've got awesome curriculum, wonderful instructors, really good financial incentives and programs for paying for it. Check them out. Their drone programs are fantastic. SDI, Sonoran Desert Institute, and tell them that Eric sent you over. You can find a link down in the description box below. So, what is it with Glocks? Why are people so obsessed with this gun? And look, we've all fallen victim to it a little bit in the past, right? We've all kind of rallied around the Glock, you know, and it's happened to all of us in the past. I remember I went through a phase where Glocks were so important to me, and all I wanted to own and shoot were Glocks, and you know, I fell victim to that same sort of trap myself. And then, I went through a phase where I really got into M&Ps hardcore, and trust me, I love the M&P. I think it's a fantastic gun, and in many ways better than a Glock pistol. But yet, I still always kind of flock back to the Glock here and there. Well, why is that, right? I mean, SIG came out with their M17 and M18 series of pistols for the Army and Marine Corps, okay? And this 19X here was also submitted for that trial for this to be the pistol for the United States military. Namely the Army and the Marines, I think, were the ones that were mainly looking for a change. Although I think some of these are going to show up, or the M17s and M18s will show up in the Air Force as well, across the whole military, of course, if I'm not mistaken. But this gun didn't beat out the SIG in the contract. And I used to always think, why? I mean, the M17 is a fantastic gun. I do like the fire control unit. I think it's got a nice long barrel, good sight radius, great trigger, accurate, very easy to shoot, generous capacity. This gun has that as well. I think the only contributing factor, one of the biggest contributing factors, wound up being cost. All right, SIG came in at a lower cost and outbid Glock, and they received the contract. But is that to say that this 19X, should or should not have been our service pistol? I don't know. I might draw some hatred here, but I would say that there are many things about this 19X that, that I like a lot. Now, this particular one is not set up as a slide rider with a cut on it, but I do believe the one that they submitted for the contract had the cut on it, if I'm not mistaken. However, again, going back to the original question, why do people like Glocks so much? And I have a couple of reasonings that I want to lay forth here that I believe might explain why Glocks are so popular. One, and I hate to go straight to this, but I know y'all are going to be thinking the same thing I'm thinking. This, okay? So you've got the 33 round Glock Model 18 magazine. So a lot of people don't know this. This magazine was specifically made for the Glock 18 Select Fire pistol, okay? Being a 33 round magazine, And they sort of designed this magazine around their pistols and stuff like that. But of course, they work in semi-autos as well. So, I can put this 33 rounder in this Glock 19X. I can put this 33 rounder in a Glock 26. I can put it in Glock 19, Glock 17, Glock 34, 17L, etc., etc. Also, if there's a PCC that is chambered to take 9mm, and let's just say it takes Glock magazines, this Glock magazine can be used in a variety of different PCCs. But is it just the fact that it holds a decent amount of shots that drove people to the Glock pistol? No. Look, the thing is, Glock is a great gun. I'm not here to talk bad or good necessarily about the Glock, but this magazine has a lot more of a factor in it than you might think, okay? These magazines are fantastic. They're metal lined. They hold up really well. They're super sturdy. They're super strong. They're very reliable. It's a very well engineered magazine. It's basically based on the normal Glock magazine, but just bigger. So Glock mags are known for being very reliable magazines, okay? And very tough. They are plastic on the outside. They are lightweight, but they do have a metal, sort of a thin metal membrane the entire length of the magazine that makes them very strong. So they have the rigidity of a metal magazine, but with the lightweight of a polymer magazine. And I think a lot of aftermarket companies tend to chase a magazine design that's all polymer. And I think they tend to sometimes forget that that metal insert is what really gives this magazine its strength. And it's a very tough, strong, reliable magazine, and most importantly, it's available. You can find them everywhere. They're very common. So is a Glock a popular pistol because it is just so much better than an M&P or a SIG or a CZ or something like that? I don't think the answer is necessarily yes. In fact, I would dare to say that some of the later Glocks, I don't like the finish that they used on the later Glocks. Getting away from that Tenifer style finish on the early guns is a really good finish. But of course they got away from that and went to more like a black oxiding or something, which is fine. The finish on the later pistols holds up reasonably well, but doesn't hold up as good as the Tenifer. Now, the finish that's on this pistol is great, okay, that they put on the 19X. So, I mean, finish aside, the newer pistols are fine. They do have the newer generation marksman barrel. So on this particular gun, I think it uses the marksman rifling or barrel, they call it, and it's fantastic. It's a very good shooting pistol. This one uses the double encapsulated recoil guide rod assembly, so it's supposed to be like a recoil reducing guide rod assembly, like you know, that sort of thing. Make it a little softer shooting. Although in 9mm, I don't really notice too much of a difference because you know, 9mm just is not a real hard kicking gun to me. You know, this gun ships with night sights standard, which is nice. That was always sort of a complaint that people had about Glocks is, well, you have to drop a set of night sights on right out of the box and all this sort of stuff. Some people over the years have complained about the Glock having not quite so good of a trigger. I have been one of the people that have never quite considered the Glock Trigger, a stock Glock Trigger, to be all that great. But the 19X, this particular trigger, for some reason, I don't know, it feels a little different. It's probably not different, but for some reason, I don't know if it's the marksman barrel or the 17 frame with a 19 slide or whatever this sort of combination of components is, I tend to shoot this gun a little bit better than my older Glocks. Take that for what you will. I don't think the trigger's any different. In fact, I think it's exactly the same. But that's just one point to sort of look at. So as Glocks go, I believe that I prefer the 19X to any other Glock that's out there. But again, why are Glocks so popular? Well, one reason is because they're very reliable to a fault. Glock pistols are extremely reliable. They're very drop safe. They are very, very utilitarian guns. They work. And now, is that to say that you're not ever going to experience a malfunction in the Glock? Well, of course not. Anything that's mechanical can and will eventually have some sort of a malfunction, be it from weak magazine springs, bad ammo. Usually the culprit is going to be some combination of ammo and magazine. As long as the gun itself is sprung right and reasonably clean, you're rarely going to have an issue out of the gun itself. You may have a magazine issue, maybe you're using aftermarket parts. Now this is another point of contention that is worth bringing up as well. People take a stock Glock that works great right out of the box and they start throwing all this garbage on the freaking gun. All these aftermarket barrels and aftermarket muzzle brakes and aftermarket springs and gizmos and everything. Now that's fine. I'm not saying that it's, look, Gucci Glocks are great. I'm not saying there's a single issue with that. Throwing all your favorite red dots and accoutrements and all your little grip tape and all your little whatever on there and painting them up and whatever, that's fine. I'm not a FUD. Do whatever you want. But make sure you vet those changes incrementally as you go. Don't buy a whole cart full of crap on a gun website and then get it all home and install all that crap on your gun and start shooting it and you start having problems. And you go, well, how do I isolate the problem? What is the problem? Is it the brake? Is it the aftermarket barrel? Is it the aftermarket guide rod assembly and aftermarket recoil spring, aftermarket trigger, aftermarket magazines? What's given the problem? You don't know because you've changed so much crap on the freaking gun, it's hard to isolate the issue. If you are going to change stuff on your stock Glock pistol, for the love of God, add one component at a time and carefully vet that component and work your way into what will become, yes, your ultimate Gucci Glock rig. So I suppose that is also one reason Glocks are popular, because they are very easy to modify and change, and there's a ton of aftermarket parts support for Glocks. So I'm not saying that not to change things on your Glock. I'm just saying that people tend to really throw a lot of crap on these things, and sometimes they don't run right. If you're talking about a stock Glock pistol, like this 19X, with standard magazines, OEM magazines from Glock, with good quality ammunition, the chances of you experiencing a malfunction are astronomically low. I mean, I'm not going to say the chance was no or nothing, but definitely low for you to have a malfunction. And okay, going back to the 33 round Glock magazines, these magazines are extremely reliable. If you guys watched our meltdown video that we did on the Glock, okay, we fired a Glock pistol full auto, right? And we weren't even using entirely OEM magazines. We were actually using a lot of magazines from SGM Tactical. And of course, those magazines ran fantastic. We didn't have a single problem really in the entire meltdown. What ended up killing the Glock was that the polymer guide rod melted. That's it. And we began to get cook-offs out of the Glock. But that Glock ran full auto, consistently, like a typewriter, until the guide rod melted and the gun started having cook-offs. But the gun itself did not fail, as far as I know, in any course of the video. So that is something to say about the reliability of a Glock pistol. They're extremely reliable. And I think that that's one reason that they have held on so hard as being a fan favorite. The good high cap magazines, the customizability of the gun, the reliability and ruggedness of the gun. I mean, obviously many law enforcement agencies still choose to use a Glock, and that's for good reason, because they're very utilitarian and easy to take care of. Also, maintenance. Glocks are extremely easy to take apart and clean, all the way down to the smallest piece. Anyone with an afternoon of training can be pretty much an armorer level type of person on the Glock pistol. It is not hard to get to know everything there is to know about this gun, all the way down to the smallest component. And that's kind of rare, right? Like, not every gun is quite so simple and forgiving as a Glock is in terms of its design. So I would say that if there were a pistol that ever wanted to take a person who wants to get into gunsmithing and say, hey, we're going to go through and take this gun down to the smallest piece, and they're going to look at you like, we're going to what? I'm like, yeah, I'll show you. And after a couple of times, 2 or 3 times putting it back together, taking it apart, you'd be surprised how easy it clicks with people. And they go, wow, like, this gun's a lot more simple than I thought it was. Like, yeah, it is. So that's something else to consider too, is the simplicity, the ruggedness. Again, this is not necessarily a vote for or against Glock. I'm not trying to convince you that Glocks are better. I'm not trying to convince you that the fans of Glocks aren't, sometimes odd people. We all have our quirks, right? CZ has their group of fans. Smith & Wesson has their group of fans. SIG has their group of fans. H&K has their fans. Look, everyone likes what they like, and for whatever reason, they tend to like it. Am I a fan of Glocks? Yes, I am. I love them. I own multiple Glocks. I will always have a Glock. In fact, if there were some situation where the world was going to absolute crap and I could only choose a couple of handguns to keep with me, you better believe one of them is going to be a Glock, because they work and they're very reliable. And, obviously we've been over all those reasons, but I like Glocks. Is that to say I'm a dyed-in-the-wool, only carry a Glock kind of person? No, I like my SIGs too. I like the SIG P365 a lot. I like the SIG M17, the SIG M18. I like the Smith & Wesson M&P 9 Core is a great gun. They make a lot of fantastic guns, and there's a lot of great options out there. So don't be afraid to look at all your options and to have fun with it. That's the most important thing. Enjoy the journey, enjoy the search, and you may find that the Glock is the pistol for you. You may find it's a CZ product or a Smith & Wesson product, and you know what? That's okay too. As long as you shoot it well and you're comfortable with it and you like it, that's really all that matters at the end of the day. Don't worry about whose name's on the gun. Worry about what you can do with that gun, and I think that's going to be your answer. So anyway, great question, and thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Many more on the way. We'll see you soon.